Hello Bionicdance, John Henry Alex here. I'd like to respond to your video, Explain This Please, where you discuss the confusion about belief you've encountered and some ambiguous, labelless, or nameless third state of belief. In this video response, I'll discuss my point of view on belief and why I think you are actually correct in your dichotomous approach to the subject. I'll start out by explaining the argument as I understand it. For the sake of clarity, we will assume that the deity being discussed is the Abrahamic deity. When asked the question, do you believe God exists, there can only be two valid or appropriate answers. 1, yes, I do believe God exists, or 2, no, I don't believe God exists. Some people may want to argue that there's a third response which is equally valid or appropriate. Number 3, I don't know if God exists or not. I reject this as a third possible response because it answers an entirely different question which was not even asked. That question being, do you know if God exists? Since the actual question is about belief and not about knowledge, the only valid responses are responses that only address belief. This leaves us again with only two valid responses, yes or no. I'd like to emphasize that the point of asking, do you believe God exists, is for the purpose of discovering or to reveal the presence or absence of a belief. Specifically a belief, a deity exists. Thus, it is a dichotomy where there are only two valid answers, yes or no. I'd like to point out that in his video titled Dillahunty and Bionicdance, Criticism on What Makes a Theist/Atheist, YouTube user Noel Plum actually agrees with you about the dichotomous nature of belief. I'll play the clip so you can see this for yourself.
Seems there's a couple of ideas that undergird what they're saying. The first is that you can't you can't believe something, you can't believe a proposition and not believe a proposition. Let's just explain what we mean by the way, just to get the terminology right. When somebody says I believe that God exists is the proposition. Believe is the attitude towards the proposition. And what they're saying is you can't hold two conflicting attitudes towards that proposition. You can't say, well, I believe that God exists and I don't believe that God exists at the same time. On that point, I totally agree with them. They're also saying that you can't part believe something. You can't say, well, I 50% believe. Well, you could say it, but it doesn't make any sense. You can't 50% believe that God exists. I totally agree with that. I accept what they're saying there.
For anyone who feels compelled to start hammering away at their keyboard to scream quote mine, I encourage you to actually go watch Noel Plum's video in its entirety. Watch it carefully and you'll see that Noel Plum 99 does actually agree, but then he goes into an argument which is different from the consideration of presence or absence of a belief. It is an entirely different argument where he changes the question being posited. I won't cover the specifics of how he makes this change in this video, but I will consider making a separate video to discuss it more in-depthly. If anyone finds themselves not agreeing with the dichotomous nature of belief and thinks there's a third state, I invite you to please make a video response and explain clearly the third state. It is important in your explanation that you ensure you stay focused on addressing belief and not have to resort to addressing or referencing knowledge to make your explanation work. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to rate and comment and maybe consider subscribing.